Welcome to Success Story, the most useful podcast in the world. I'm your host, Scott D. Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. The HubSpot Podcast Network has incredible podcasts for you to check out, like Remarkable People, hosted by Guy Kawasaki, of course, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. The Remarkable People podcast with Guy Kawasaki helps you better understand the changing world with interviews from thought leaders, legends, and iconoclasts. If you are interested in business, leadership, entrepreneurship, he interviews the best of the best, leveraging connections that he's built over his career. Here's some of the episodes and interviews that he's done. He's spoken to Seth Godin, marketing god, blogger, author. He's spoken to Pat Flynn, entrepreneur, power podcaster, and popular YouTuber. He's spoken to Jen Lim, happiness evangelist and author of Beyond Happiness. He's spoken to Steve Blank, author, entrepreneur, and startup whisperer. If you want to listen to incredibly intelligent conversations with some of the most remarkable people on the planet, listen to Remarkable People podcast by Guy Kawasaki wherever you get your podcasts. Today, my guest is Zac Litwack. He is a partner at Savage Ventures. Now, Savage Ventures specializes in the acquisition, turnaround, and rapid growth of established and emerging media brands from the worlds of entertainment, sports, music, online culture, and more. Zac is also a serial entrepreneur himself. In 2010, he built a music company which produced a gold record and 9 figures in music streams. He subsequently grew a healthcare tech company to multiple 7 figures in revenue. More recently, he led marketing of the Savage portfolio company OutKick, which he scaled along with his team to 7 figures per month in revenue and sold to Fox in less than 1 year after its launch. He is a venture capitalist and an operator. He is currently the chief marketing officer and owner of American Songwriter and Total Frat Move, whose properties reach 20 million people per month. He leads marketing, growth hacking, testing in all of Savage's portfolio companies. Some of the things that we spoke about, the importance of not only being a VC, but being an operator, and how he's leveraged his experience with some of the portfolio companies to see the success that they've seen. He walks through how he started, scaled, and sold OutKick to Fox in less than 1 year for almost 9 figures. We spoke about a general strategy that Savage Ventures takes to build a company and to plan for a successful exit from the start, as well as the strategy that Zac and his team use to scale and grow their portfolio companies after they've been highly distressed, and what he does to turn them around. So let's jump right into this. A couple startup lessons, venture capital lessons, acting as an operator, as well as scaling growth lessons, all the good stuff. This is Zac Litwack, partner at Savage Ventures.
Well, Scott, thanks for having me on, man. I've listened to a handful of episodes, so it's almost a humbling experience to be on this podcast. I super appreciate it. So my origin story, well, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I picked up a guitar and thought it was cool. And honestly, I thought the girls thought it was cool too. And so I started practicing guitar more than working on high school assignments. And I ended up going to music school just outside of Nashville, in a school called MTSU. It's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I decided to stick around and ended up actually starting a company in college, a music production company with, at the time, my best friend. And we for the first 4 or 5 years out of college, we didn't make a single dime. I actually maxed out some credit cards and had to call my dad one time for help. And then our 5th or 6th year in, we actually started having some success. We produced a couple artists that ended up doing really well. And but at that time, my business partner and I had a terrible relationship. And we, it was so bad. It was so toxic. We walked in the same room as each other, and we couldn't speak to each other. And so that was us being young, and I think being poor at communicating, and honestly going through 4 years of not making any money and scraping by.
It strains a relationship.
It's a start. Yeah. It's a startup story. So I sold my share of the company, all of our royalties. We owned a couple of studios to him, and basically paid off debt. So I was at square one, 6 years into my professional life. I sat on the couch for 3 months. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started applying for jobs at Sony Music, and even though I had some top 40s back in 2015, 2016, they didn't want to talk to me because I had no real music business, traditional music business expertise, except I figured out how to produce these artists and scale them on channels that they didn't even know about at the time, on digital essentially. And so thankfully, my friend called me out of Atlanta and said, "Hey, dude, I heard you sold your company. I could use some help with my app startup called Split. Do you want to help me?" And I was like, "Sure, dude, sounds fun." And so I jumped right back into a startup, and I did that for about a year. It was restaurant technology. We were trying to sell to restaurants, and we were trying to acquire app users to use the app within the restaurants and connect it to the point of sale. Honestly, we would still be too early probably in 2021 with this tech, knowing how slow the restaurant industries have adapted technology even through COVID. I thought they were pretty slow to do it. Anyways, like I did that startup, I did another startup, did another startup, did another startup. I failed miserably for 4 or 5 years.
You just ran it through all these So what were some of these ideas? Were they?
So one was called
ideas you can talk about, or
one was called My Move Book. We basically were trying to make the moving process better, and we actually had an LOI with Home Depot at one point in time to like be one of our premier service providers. That was also a two-sided marketplace where we had vendors. We were doing B2B sales, basically signing up vendors, and then like moving companies, utility companies, that sort of thing. And then we were going to acquire app users. That company didn't even really raise that much money. We actually self-funded it for a little while, and then it fizzled out because everybody had day jobs, except for me, of course. And then I did a couple of other startups. One was called Healthcare Blocks, which is a HIPAA-compliant platform as a service on top of Amazon Web Services. So you could basically launch your app on our platform, which was just basically built on top of Amazon. So this was back in 2016, 2017, when HIPAA compliance was like still this very ethereal, like hard to understand thing for everyone, honestly. And so, and people started developing healthcare apps. So we made it really easy to deploy apps in a HIPAA compliant manner on top of Amazon. That company actually raised a little bit of money. We did a little bit of revenue, but still wasn't a slam dunk. I think it's still around, and I think I have some stock, but I don't know where it's at. Honestly, I haven't caught up with that company in a while. Let's see, what else? There are probably 5 or 10. I don't think they're worth going into, but eventually I wound up working for a company here in Nashville that was a healthcare technology company called GoCheck. And we basically built this iPhone app that could take a picture of a kid's eyes and basically give you instantaneous feedback as to whether that kid had vision problems. So it was a super innovative healthcare app. And that company was like my first somewhat successful startup, where we grew it from a couple $100K in revenue to a couple million in just over a year and raised a good bit of money. And towards the tail end of that, I was kind of getting burnt out on that company, and I was kind of feeling like I could do more, essentially, because we just had this one product, one market. It was worldwide, but we were basically selling to pediatrics, worldwide. And so I partnered up with my friend Sam to start Savage Ventures last year. And this has been my first, what I would call, no pun intended, quote unquote, success story.
Very good. So you took the money. So the money that you used for Savage Ventures was from that last success. That was the one that was actually successful, that made you some money, that allowed you to basically start a firm or a venture capital firm. And how did you exit that last venture, the pediatric one?
We raised a Series B, and I exited at that point. So I raised at the funding event, I left at the funding event.
Okay, so then what was the for you at least, why did you want to start funding more startups? Because at this point you've gone through about 10, you've had one success. It doesn't even sound like you took much time off. It seems like you just jumped right into now being a funding source or an investor for more startups, correct?
Yeah, so Sam, my current business partner at Savage Ventures, and I actually started this company on the side back in 2018. Okay. So I was still doing the healthcare startup. We started a company called MyDrHank, which is a direct-to-consumer pharmacy brand. We specialize in erectile dysfunction medication for seniors and have expanded the product suite a little bit, but still focused on the senior market. And that company was actually doing okay. I threw up a landing page. We found a partner to operate that company down in Florida. He built out a call center. I stood up some Facebook ads. And so we had that company at the end, back in 2018, we started that company. And then we also got an opportunity to purchase this music media company called American Songwriter for super cheap. Like I didn't have a lot of money when I started Savage Ventures, but it was a super cheap acquisition. So we had these two companies that were doing revenue that were profitable at the time, and then we've been scaling those companies up. In June, we got an opportunity to joint venture with this guy named Clay Travis, who's a pretty prolific like sports journalist and reporter, and he had a national radio show, and he had a blog essentially called OutKick the Coverage. And we were able to scale that company with him and sell it to Fox in June. So we started it in June and sold it to Fox in June. It was actually under a year in total, which was pretty cool. And then we also purchased Total Frat Move last year. All of our acquisitions and investments so far, Scott, have been like pretty small. Like we're writing, $500K to $1 million checks. And a lot of times we're actually not writing checks. We're creating deals where we de-risk ourselves by, saying, hey, we'll buy your company for $1 million, but we're going to pay you out over 3 years, right? Or 5 years. So we're writing a $50,000 check or a $100,000 check. And if we have high confidence that we can scale the company, a lot of times what happens is we scale the company so quickly that we're not actually writing checks. It's just coming out of the company's cash flow.
So I think this is really interesting because when we first connected, we were talking about this, and I think that that's something that people with a little bit of extra cash don't consider when they want to talk about how to invest or how to put their money somewhere. So how did you find these deals? It's like, what are you looking for? Like these deals obviously are, well, one of them, like Total Frat Move, that's a pretty well-known name. But how did you find these deals? How did you negotiate these setups where you're writing a very small check and you're not just pumping $1 million plus into these companies so that they can help scale? Because if you're finding a company that is only worth, for example, $1 million and you're putting in 50,000, the founder changed the perspective. From a founder perspective, I'd be like, well, how is this 50,000 going to do anything for me? Like I'm already hurting. I'm already not doing great as an organization. 50,000 isn't going to do much at all. So then I have to trust that you're going to take it to the next level while I'm still giving up an equity position.
Yeah. So American Songwriter, let's start there. It was a magazine brand. It was a 34-year-old brand. Very famous songwriters and artists love the mag and love the brand because they grew up reading it and they learned how to, help write their first song by reading the magazine. So there's a lot of brand affinity and the brand is just very strong. But we didn't really have digital presence. So that's an opportunity for us to say, okay, this is a match with our skill sets, and this company is owned by an older gentleman that was ready to retire, and his number was pretty low. Like he didn't want that much money to retire. And so like that's a situation. Then with Total Frat Move, it had a lot of warts. It was a somewhat distressed asset where in 2016, I think they were doing like $1 million months, and fast forward to 2020, they were probably going to do $1 million that year. And so the owners, and also it's just, I guess they were in kind of like a life stage too, where they started this company when they were in their mid-20s and they were entering, their early to mid-30s. They have families now. Like, do they really want to be running Total Frat Move? And so they made some mistakes back in 2016 that caused them to burn a lot of cash and lose a lot of revenue. And then they were getting to the point in their life where they didn't want to run this type of brand anymore. So we were able to get that brand for cheap as a result. We knew it had warts. We knew we were going to have to do a lot of work to scale it. But similarly to American Songwriter, it still had a strong brand affinity. Scott, it sounds like you've at least seen the Instagram handle or have heard of the brand before.
Yeah. I knew them in university.
Yeah. So you knew them back in college.
Total Sorority Move. Yeah.
College, all those brands. So those are the types of deals we've done. But what I'll say is there's always and then with OutKick, it was different in the sense that there was an existing audience. It was Clay Travis's kind of side hustle. He had this blog that he wrote on and he had a couple of contributors, but what he did have was a national audience that he didn't know how to monetize. So we were able to do a joint venture with him. We agreed to invest up to X dollars. And I don't want to say that publicly yet because
No, that's cool. I just think the process is.
But we scaled the company so quickly where I only think we ended up investing like 30 grand or something. Like we agreed to invest up to amount, but the company was so profitable out of the gate that we didn't really need to invest that much money. So we've made investments that are pretty low risk. Sure, I mean, if Total Frat Move fails, we'll be on the hook for, 400 or 500K more probably at this point. But that's not a huge deal, spread out over 25K allotments, per quarter or 50K allotments. I don't remember exactly what it is. And then so
you're looking at.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you find distressed assets that, and you immediately understand and you look at them and you see an opportunity to move into a different channel, different medium, scale them that way. So when you look at an asset, what is the playbook to basically move into another medium or another channel that hasn't been exploited yet? Because something, for example, like OutKick, that makes sense. Okay, so maybe that's a side hustle that you can sort of more legitimize or put more energy into. But something like Total Frat Move, where they're already on all social. Like, I don't think there's too many mediums that they haven't touched. That's a different playbook. So, but you have confidence in scaling either of those. So walk me through your strategy for when you take a look at a brand or an asset that you do a deal with and how you want to grow them.
Yeah. Yes, Total Frat Move has a lot of social handles, but a lot of them had been pretty much deprecated. Like the TSM Instagram and Facebook hadn't been posted to in over a year. So, but that tells me that there are followers that we could potentially reactivate there. And so we start posting relevant content there and just gauge the engagement. For Total Frat Move, though, I always develop these like high level monetization hypotheses before I actually drill into the channels. So with Total Frat Move, it's like, we could probably do merch because we've got millions of Instagram, like very engaged Instagram followers. The previous owners never really did merch. And if they did, it was with maybe a brand partnership, and it was kind of a one-off. So we thought we could scale merch. We've kind of proven that out. Like we're starting to have low six-figure merch months, which is good, which is a good start. The second hypothesis I had was that we can integrate sports betting, which will prove out this football season. We haven't been able to prove that out yet. We had a lot of success with sports betting on OutKick, and Total Frat Move has a similar but younger audience. And we have a plethora of learnings from, especially on the paid media front, by leveraging an existing audience and scaling sports betting more broadly on channels like Facebook. And so I think we're going to be able to do that with Total Frat Move, just like we did for OutKick. My third hypothesis was we are going to be able to create a website, because they didn't really have a website. It was really just a social being. It was like a social organism as a company. It was super weird. They had a website. It was haphazardly published to sometimes. And it served, honestly, a better purpose for the TFM Girls brand than anything. So I kept the TFM Girls, the old website, as TFM Girls, and I launched a new website. We actually built out an editorial team that's publishing regular content. And we're going to try to increase page views as a result. And then there's all sorts of things that we can do when we actually own that traffic. Like, for example, monetizing via programmatic, maybe developing some sort of membership component. But those are our three focuses right now. It's increase audience and distribution as a result of that, increasing merchandise sales and website traffic. And then the rest will kind of take care of itself. Because we got the company for so cheap, our hypothesis in general was like, worst case, we make our money back. Like, there's no way we don't lose money here. And so again, it was like a really easy decision for us, where like literally they were like, hey, we're interested in selling. And we were like, cool, here's our price. And they were like, cool, sounds good. And we it was 2 days or something. We did it.
It was a 2-day acquisition.
It's all timing, right? They were really ready to get out. The company wasn't doing that well financially. I mean, it was profitable, it was doing some revenue, but compared to what it had been even 3 years, 4 years prior, it wasn't looking good. They had some they had an institutional investor also that had invested a couple $1 million, and he was anxious to get kind of new, fresh blood and ownership. And we've got a good. My business partner Sam has a much deeper media background than I do. He's had a couple of exits in media too, So like we come with a really deep media track record. And at the time, OutKick was exploding when we purchased TFM. So it was a good deal all around. We flew out to Austin, signed the contract, had some drinks, and then went to work.
Awesome, man. Okay, so if somebody, I'm trying to model out the way you've done this. I think it's very smart. So you're not putting in huge investments. You're finding assets at the right time, potentially distressed assets. You put in a small check. You're agreeing to a deal to purchase it already at a low price, but you're putting in an even smaller check. You're paying off your investment with actually revenue from the company. You develop like a high growth playbook for the organization. You're just sort of doing like a holistic review of like their monetization options, different channels, and then you're finding new ways or new avenues to explore, and then you're just executing on that. And you are not just part VC, you're obviously part operator too. So how involved are you in these companies? What is your actual role in these? Is it, I guess, CMO? I was just taking a look at some.
Yeah, I'm kind of the resident chief marketing officer, I guess. That's my background. Is even in the music business, I was doing a little bit of digital marketing, but when I ventured into all the failed startups, that's when I really learned how to do digital marketing. Some people call it growth hacking. I mean, I've been on the product teams before. It depends on what your goals are, acquisition or activation or retention. But so we operate the companies too, and it's a beautiful setup and we're still kind of learning as we go, Scott. I mean, we're only a year and a half into this thing, but it's cool because we've got a bunch of Savage Ventures employees, and those people are all the creative people that you want to stick around for the long term, like growth hackers and developers, people that I'm spending a lot of time like coaching and nurturing too, to run experiments like I think is the best way to run experiments. At least the data's proving that out. And so like we've got a lot of Savage Ventures folks that are becoming really good digital marketers, and we're building out a dev team so that we can fix technology super quickly if we end up purchasing a company like TFM. And honestly, our growth hackers can do all the technical marketing stuff, so that's not a big deal. And then when we sell a company like OutKick to Fox, that nucleus stays intact. And also it allows us to distribute talent as we really need it, so that there's no wasted time. I think that like people in big corporations, like middle managers and stuff, work like 30% of the day. But we have so many companies and so little time. Like our growth hackers should be working at least, focus 7 or 8 hours a day. There's too much to work on for them not to be. And so it allows us to stay super efficient, and it allows us to just get a lot of shit done. And that's part of the reason I think why we've been able to grow the company so quickly. And then also one other component of Savage Ventures that's interesting is we have in-house HR and accounting. And so literally those services, again, are spread across the portfolio, which keeps our existing properties, our portfolio companies, super lean. Like we don't have many FTEs for the companies. For like a company like MyDrHank, we've got a call center and a lot of customer support. But for our media properties, we've got an intern running customer support. We've got obviously writers. Some of our writers are FTEs, but dude, our companies are super lean. Our OpEx is so low if you take out the Savage Ventures people.
Amazing. Okay, I want to walk through the playbook that you deployed for OutKick, because that was obviously successful. So we can't talk specific numbers, but it was almost 9-figure exit. So like a very high 8-figure exit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So it was a good exit. Okay. So you got into OutKick. It was a blog that was being run, I guess.
Yeah,
so
Clay Travis.
What were some of the...
We joint ventured with Clay Travis. He had a blog called OutKick the Coverage that was doing, I don't even know if it was doing 1 million sessions per month. I don't think it was, back in like April, May of last year. But he had a national radio show, so he had a decent sized audience, but he didn't understand or have the wherewithal to figure out how to get in front of that audience on social and drive that traffic to the website and do all sorts of fun monetization things. And so it was a good marriage in that respect, where like he had an existing audience we could build off of. And not to derail your question, but like that's part of what we look for. If there's an existing audience we could scale, like I think we're best at turning stuff from 3 to 10 versus turning stuff from 0 to 3, just because that's more efficient. Because we know how to go from 3 to 10. So we could find more threes, and threes could be like, we're doing $1 million per year. We want to do 10, right? Or something like that. Or we've got an existing audience of like 1 million people and we want to scale that to 10 million, whatever it is. It's like 10xing, and like literally we more than 10x'd OutKick in like 11 months.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Shopify. And don't you love that sound? That's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. See, Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses. So upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and offline sales activity, and effortlessly stay informed. You can not only sell your product, but you can reach customers online and across social media networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. You can gain insights as you grow and detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. Whatever you need to track, Shopify can track it for you. And remember, Shopify was built to liberate commerce for entrepreneurs and big businesses alike. Shopify is tirelessly reinventing tools of growth and scale for over 1.7 million businesses. So if 1.7 million businesses trust Shopify to help them organize their online and synchronize with their offline sales, you should be able to use it for your business as well. Connect with your customers, drive sales, manage your day-to-day, accept all major payment methods, and integrate with any third-party app you could possibly think of. If you want to try out Shopify right now, go to shopify.com/success story. That's all lowercase for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/success story right now. Remember, success story is all lowercase. That's shopify.com/success story. I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Get Abstract. Now, what is Get Abstract? Get Abstract finds, rates, and summarizes top business books, articles, and video talks into 10-minute abstracts to help people make better business decisions, help people level up, upskill. They give you the most important, pertinent points. They cut all the fluff for you. If you're like me, you love to read, you love to watch little video segments, you love to read articles, you grab a new book, but you run out of time. And this is where Get Abstract really helps, because they make sure that they find the most important, most impactful business books, articles, talks, and they summarize it for you so you get the main takeaways, the main points. They have over 22,000 text and audio summaries in areas such as leadership, finance, innovation, health, and science. So if you want to level yourself up and you're running out of time, Get Abstract is a great tool. I absolutely love it. Now, they put together a special offer for everybody who's a Success Story podcast listener. There's no stress, there's no risk in trying it. They're giving you a month free. So if you want to use it to get the most relevant points from books, if you want to use it to even test drive a book before you purchase it, or if you want to use it to discover hidden gems or pieces of work that you maybe never even knew existed, because I have an entire team that curates all this content for you, you can go to getab.li. That's getab.li/success, and you can get a free month of Get Abstracts. You can test it out, see what the summaries are like, you can see what the abstracts are like, and you can see the library of content that they've created. So that is getab.li/success. So how did you do that? So walk me through what were some of the main growth hacking digital marketing things that you did with OutKick, that really worked?
Yeah, a couple things. One is, so I think there are 3 components to scaling something 10x in 12 months. There's people, and I mentioned Savage Ventures earlier. So we had the right people. We had good growth hackers, knowledgeable digital marketers, good writers, et cetera, and a person that knew how to build out an editorial team. Dallas is our resident chief editorial officer who has a deep background in sports. So we had the people. Then you need the process. I have a process called high tempo testing, which is basically like a Kanban board, if you can imagine like a Trello type of situation where you've got your idea backlog and then you just drag something through this workflow, and there's a quantitative system to rank your ideas, and all the ideas tie up to whatever monetization levers we're trying to pull or test. And so like an idea might be like, let's run Facebook ads against, our membership offering to this audience with this type of angle or whatever. And everything links up to our core, like 4 or 5 things we're trying to test as far as monetization is concerned. And then the third thing, you need timing. Just like I mentioned timing, purchasing these companies, you need timing. Like you can be the best marketer and you could have the best fucking product, like my restaurant app that I told you about. Fantastic product. But it was 2015 or something. Like DoorDash wasn't even a thing. Like it was not even an idea in someone's head at that point, I don't think. Maybe they were going through YC at the time. I don't know, but I don't think they were around. You need timing. And so the content that Clay likes to cover is literally like politics and sports. And think about where we were in the middle of 2020 when we launched this thing. It was just super polarizing content that was very timely. And so it presented the right time to scale audience super quickly. Like I remember we launched our YouTube channel, for example, like from scratch, and we had like 50,000 subscribers in like 2 months or something. It was wild. And we had a couple videos with 1 million views because the content was perfect. Yes, we've got a video production team. Yes, we know how to, optimize videos, titles, tags, etc. Yes, we know how to test these channels, but like you still need the timeliness of whatever your offer is, right? And so those 3 components existed for OutKick. We didn't know it obviously when we started, but when we started to scale it super quickly, we did. And so through that process, you basically test different monetization tactics or monetization levers that you can pull. We had our membership offering. We had driving traffic to the website and monetizing it programmatically. Those are kind of like, staples in media these days. We had merchandise and other staple in media. So we were testing all of these things. One of our other tests, though, was sports betting. And going back to timing again, sports betting had just become legal the year prior in the States, in like 4 or 5 different states. And another 4 or 5 states were about to go online at the kickoff of football season. So here we are with a really growing audience that's super passionate and engaged, that is a mixture of sports and politics, that trust our brand. I think in October or November, we scaled traffic to the point where we were doing definitely probably about 10 million sessions per month. So it was a pretty sizable website, considering we went from 500,000 sessions, 4 or 5 months prior. And so we had a bunch of website traffic. We had a bunch of eyeballs. Facebook also was super interesting in the sense that we were posting, again, very timely, very well-written editorial content there. And even though we started our Facebook page pretty much from scratch, we had maybe like 60 or 70,000 followers. We had posts that were reaching 5 to 6 million people organically. The algorithm was just really liking some of our Facebook content.
You think it was timely? Do you think that's why?
Yeah, it was super timely. Again, we were posting content that people wanted to read about because this was 2020. The election was coming up. I mean, COVID was happening. And our brand literally is a mixture of politics and sports. And it's all about, the OutKick brand was all about free speech. And it still is, obviously. And Fox obviously was a good partner in that respect, where it was conservative leaning. It was basically free speech, capitalism, like everybody should be able to do or say whatever they want to do within those guardrails I talked about earlier. And a ton of America resonated with it. And obviously a ton of America likes sports. So it was like a one-stop shop for your, what you believe in, and also to read about a game. It was like really cool. And so our 4th monetization test was sports betting. And like I said, we had this audience, and 4 or 5 more states were due to go live. And one of those states was Tennessee. And Clay's from Tennessee. We're here in Nashville. And basically, long story short, is through a lot of experiments and through launching sports betting, we got to the point where we were doing $1 million weeks in profit through sports betting. A mixture of organic, because we had quite a bit of website traffic and we had decent email list, and we had obviously a lot of reach on Facebook and YouTube and some reach on Twitter too. But also we were running a ton of experiments around paid media, especially on Facebook. And Facebook's algorithm is a little wonky these days because of the iOS 14 privacy updates that happen. But back then, literally, I would just target broadly, like, here are the 10 legal states. Here are the 3 creatives I wanted to test. Here are the 3 copy variations I wanted to test. And honestly, I could let like Facebook do its thing. And around the biggest sporting events, like when Tennessee went live with sports betting, and I think they had a big promo for like the UT versus Kentucky game or something, and then the college football championship. And then we get to the Super Bowl, which is February of this year. We had so many learnings. Like, we had paid media dialed in. We knew what organic channels worked the best, through what mediums worked the best. And so when we hit the Super Bowl, we almost did $1 million, I think, on Super Bowl Sunday, just to give you some for some texture.
Yeah.
So basically, when you go into a media property, you need timing, obviously, or any company, and you need to test a bunch of different monetization levers to see, or offers is another way to call them. If you just have like a singular product, it would probably be like angles is what you would test. But you test all of these different things, and you find one that is clearly working, and then you like quadruple, you 10x down on it. You like literally just focus on that and scale it. And that's kind of what we did. And one of Fox's top three kind of priorities for 2021, one of them was sports betting. And because our content also was a good fit from like a conservative political standpoint, it was a no-brainer for them to come in and purchase us probably sooner than we would have sold prior.
So that was actually, I was going to ask you, did you do all of this with an early exit in mind? Obviously, you had some sort of exit. You wanted to make your money back. And the founders probably wanted to, the founders, Clay wanted probably to get some money out of his blog. But did you actually do this with exiting in mind? Did you think that far ahead? Were you thinking Fox has been discussing sports betting, that's a potential exit partner? Or was this just a happy coincidence, like serendipity, that this happened after you went into sports betting, you had a brand that was really working well with like the Fox brand, and how did that transaction come to be? Yeah.
So any company we take on, whether it's Total Frat Mover, OutKick, or American Songwriter, we want to sell it as quickly as possible. We're not in the business of building these big, giant legacy companies. Myself and Sam, my business partner, we absolutely, like when a company gets large to the point where we have to worry about like HR and we have to worry about like politicking and stuff like that, we held on to the company for too long. So the OutKick story is hopefully something that we'll be able to repeat many times over. Now, will they all be less than 1 year and selling it for almost $100 million? Probably not. But they could be like 2 or 3 year holds. I would say 3 years would be pushing it, and it could be a similar story, right? And so whenever we acquire a company or start a company, that's our mindset. It's like scale it and sell it as fast as possible. And so with the OutKick situation, sports betting is just such a hot market right now. It's like probably top 3, I would imagine, in the United States as far as like growth last year. And so, or at least interest. I don't know about actual dollars because only 10 states are live right now. But Fox wasn't the only one that was interested. There were other companies that were interested, other large media companies. Fox just made the most sense because of how great of a fit the content was. Otherwise, like if they were just purchasing us for sports betting revenue, I don't like what the other companies were more so doing. It just didn't feel right because we had other very good revenue streams, just a lot smaller. Like our programmatic stream is 6 figures per month, or like I said, our website traffic's pretty healthy. Our brand partnerships are solid. I think we did some 6-figure months, and so like we were doing a decent amount of memberships too. We had 6-figure membership months, so it's like we had a really strong, profitable company. It's just the sports betting revenue was by far the largest revenue stream, and it happened to be a really hot market, and it still is a hot market going into this football season.
Are there considerations? So say somebody is doing the same type of thing as what you're doing. Are there considerations for introducing new revenue streams, being sensitive to existing audiences, doing it so that it doesn't have a net negative impact? Or is it just about testing and putting stuff in and just ideating on new ways to make money and bringing it to an existing audience? Is there any things you have to think about?
It's all about testing. A lot of people inside of OutKick were very hesitant to like blast our audience with sports betting promos. And I was like, well, we don't know until we know. And it just so happened that a lot of our audience was interested in betting. Great. And we could kind of see it organically when we started publishing some sports betting content, people navigating over to that, or we would include it in our newsletter. And I think we did some surveying. So you could do some things up front that allow you to like gauge how fast you can experiment with a new offer that you're unsure will resonate with your audience. But at the end of the day, if they're really loyal fans, I don't think it matters too much. Like if they just see an offer they don't like from the company that they really like, then they'll just be like, my preference is I don't like this. And that's fine. I'll continue to consume the other content that I really like, or continue to do whatever I do with that company or purchase. Like, there are a lot of companies, I'm sure, Scott, that you consume their product, but you don't like all their products, or you don't like some things that they're doing, or some things that they're creating aren't made for you. So I'd say go harder than you think you can go. Like, piss people off. Like, go to the point where you think you're going to piss people off, and I bet you're not even 50% of the way there.
I love that. Yeah, that's smart. I think people have to, I think founders, or, well, I guess, in your case, a venture partner, sometimes you have to get out of your own head as to what your audience is okay with. And I think that you won't know until you know. Do you have any ideas for people that are more hesitant, like how to test and how to poll and how to get some feedback just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable? Even though I hear what you're saying, I don't disagree with you. But are there some strategies that you've seen effective to actually get some feedback from the audience before you launch something new?
Yeah, firstly, if you screw up and you do have a loyal audience that likes at least one of your products, if you screw up, it's a great opportunity for you to be human and say, hey, I screwed up. And it's actually a great opportunity for you to start talking more in a one-on-one capacity with your customer base, at least through email. And maybe it's your customer support team that's doing that. So I'd say every step of the way, you should be as aggressive as possible, because you're aggressive, like I said, is probably not even aggressive enough and this is specifically for a startup. If you want to be a high growth startup, you've got to run more experiments than you think you should be running or can be running. As far as like polling and surveying, just send out an email saying, or do a Twitter poll or whatever, wherever your audience is, just say, hey, do you like this? Audience. Like, it's super simple. People complicate the heck out of this stuff. It's pretty simple. Just have a conversation like you and I are having with your customers, see what they like, see what they don't like. And you can do that obviously via like forums or polls if you have a large audience and you just need to get a high level aggregate. But you could also have some one-on-one conversations if you're just starting out and you're like going through a beta test. And what's cool about that is you can actually make them feel like they're a part of the product creation, even though like ultimately you have the decision. Just making them feel like they have a say is super powerful from like an influence and persuasion standpoint, and they'll probably be lifelong customers and advocates.
I love that, man. And one thing that I'm bringing, I keep hearing you say, not explicitly, but you are so okay with testing and trying new things and iterating. And even when how many founders get stuck in their head and they run the same playbook for 5 years and it's not working and they keep running that playbook. You just go in and you don't really have, I think you're actually at an advantage because you don't have that I guess that love for the company, like it's your baby, like a founder would have, that I actually think can hurt them in the long run because they get stubborn about what's working and what's not. Like everything you did, the founders could have done without you, but they probably stuck in their lane a little bit too much. Yeah,
probably. That's an interesting point about how founders are super close to their product. And in some cases, it's like their life mission or whatever. We view it as just, we're capitalists. So we view it as this is an investment. And we're going to try to grow the investment as much as possible. And because it's our investment, we have ultimate skin in the game. And like I told you earlier, so far, the numbers haven't been crazy. Like if we lose $500K, oh well. Like I probably spent that much throughout the music industry days. Nah, probably not quite that much. But
it's not like 20 million, 50 million.
Yeah, it's not like 20 million. It's not like we're going to be broke, Yeah. And because we have 5 or 6 companies, it kind of reduces risk in that respect too. What I found is certain months, like one company will kill it. And then the next month, like the other company will kill it. And some companies won't do as well certain months because of certain factors. And so if you've got 5 or 6, you're kind of diversified in that respect if you view it that way. But yeah, dude, for like people need to view their business as their livelihood, and they need to think about it through the lens of like capitalism. And at the end of the day, even though this is your passion project, it needs to be a viable business. And to do that, you need to be super aggressive in your go-to-market plan and strategy and execution, especially your execution. I am blown away by the fact that I read these like 10 to 15 page strategy Google Docs when the company doesn't even have a customer yet, or they have, like a couple $1,000 in MRR. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Just go out to like start testing. Like literally you've wasted months writing the strategy doc, but you don't know what your fucking strategy needs to be. Dude, you don't know that until you go to market. Like go to market, start running experiments, launch a Facebook ad. Anybody can do it. Like start getting some feedback. that data is going to inform your strategy. You shouldn't be creating a strategy until you're at like $1 million plus in revenue, in my opinion. It's just a waste of time.
Okay. And also you have to figure out economics of scale too, right? So if you do figure out a strategy and you run ads and that's fine, that's great. But all of a sudden, if you're trying to run $1 million in ads per month, maybe that same strategy isn't valid anymore, right? There's limits, not limits. There's going to be ceilings on a strategy that you set up, and you have to keep figuring stuff out. So I think that also people over engineer a strategy, and then they realize that it's not going to take them from 100K ARR to 100 million ARR. It's not going to be the same strategy that you're just going to run throughout the whole life cycle of a company. And I've seen that actually as well, where, okay, so we have the strategy actually. Again, you don't want to name names if the company isn't comfortable talking about this, but I've worked with companies before, and they were an older company, not big, but older. And they were doing, a couple 100,000 ARR, but they've been running the same playbook as they got them the first 100K, and they wanted to scale that up to $1 million. And the economics of scale didn't work out. The ad conversion, the return on ad spend wasn't there. And it was just self-serve software application, and they had to completely revamp how they took their product to market. And it was a mix of even understanding what their brand and how their customers perceive them, moving up market to mid-market and enterprise, just hiring a sales team that was going outbound versus just pure self-serve, and all these different things that made the founder uncomfortable, but ultimately was what brought them to the point where they could be acquired. I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. Now, the holidays are here, and that means client gifts. Maybe you're a classic type that goes for the champagne or the gift basket, or maybe you're a little irreverent and you go for the custom bobblehead or monogram stress ball. Gifts are a great way to show your customers that you care. But what clients want, what they really, really, really want, is time and attention and a little bit of love. A HubSpot CRM platform helps your business connect with customers consistently, consciously, and shows them a whole lot of love. New customer-centric features like a CRM-powered CMS means your marketers and developers can personalize the customer experience and ensure that the intention you give your customers is reflected in the data that is timely and relevant. Secure customer portals keep ticket conversations going between customers and reps, offer access to your knowledge base, and can be customized to fit your brand, all without coding a thing. It's a customer gift that keeps on giving. Learn more about how a HubSpot CRM can help build, maintain, and grow your customer relationships at HubSpot.com. I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Manscaped. I want you to set your New Year's resolution with good intentions. I want you to set a resolution that you can actually keep and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'll explain in a second, but if you do, you need to take advantage of our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code 20success for 20% off and free shipping. Now, what's Manscaped? Well, Manscaped is the global leader in below the waist grooming. So now you can take your below the belt grooming to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0 and brand new ultra premium body wash. In the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. This is an electric trimmer designed to trim hair on loose skin. And just know that with the Lawnmower 4.0, the advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks to your most delicate parts. It also comes with a 4000K LED spotlight that will shine a light so that you don't mess up when you're trying to clean up for a great 2022. And of course, a grooming routine isn't complete without smelling good. Apply the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver before showing off your 2022 Manscaped self. These unique formulas take care of the smelliest parts of your body, keep you smelling fresh. This is a big boost in confidence that you need in 2022. Kick your discomfort and your poor hygiene to the curb. Use the best tools for the job and get 20% off and free shipping with the code 20success at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code 20success. It's a new year, no pubes in 2022 with Manscaped. So
yeah, those were all experiments. Like I was talking to a B2B sales leader, a friend of mine, and he was like, should we try out this call center? Should we do this? I was like, dude, if you've got the budget and you've got a sound hypothesis, try everything. And what will probably end up happening is some stuff's going to moderately work and you'll continue to do that. Some stuff's going to fail. and then you're going to have one or two experiments that just like transform your business, like our sports betting monetization experiment with OutKick, for example. Or we've got one for American Songwriter called, it's just our contests. We host these singer-songwriter contests, and we launched those digitally via paid media last year, and those have been transformative to our e-commerce revenue, going from like a traditional like old school magazine company into the digital world. And so like we've tested like 20 other e-commerce offerings, right? But just one is working really well. So you might have to test 20 or 30 things, but that one thing that works is going to far outpay the 19 that don't.
Do you think that what you're doing now, so you're in, how many companies are you in now total? You're in
so we've got, we're still operating OutKick. We've got MyDrHank, the direct-to-consumer pharmacy brand. We're going to try to grow that to like 500K MRR in the next 12 months and sell that. And then we've got American Songwriter, which is the biggest question mark in my mind as far as like growth potential and who would actually buy it. Because through MyDrHank, it's more like an OutKick situation where it's timely, right? It's like direct-to-consumer healthcare. It's valued very well right now. Coming out of 2020, companies realize that they need to figure this stuff out. And so it's subscription revenue for the most part. And then we've got also Total Frat Move, which it's still early, but I think that thing is going to be a monster. Merchandise, sports betting, we'll build some audience. Probably not as monster as OutKick was, but we've got a great brand there with existing social distribution, more so than, way more than what we started with OutKick. And then we've also got Savage Media, which is our video production company, and we actually are dabbling in real estate. We purchased a building in Germantown here in Nashville. That's going to be the Savage Media headquarters. So we'll have a big video production studio there that will service all of our companies, but I think we're going to be launching more shows for Fox and OutKick too. So that'll be
awesome.
Fun.
Okay. And for somebody who wants to follow in your path and just realize that they can negotiate a deal for $30,000 or $50,000, which is money that a lot of people can afford to invest. Is this something that they could, first of all, I just love some advice from you for somebody who wants to get into this, purchase their first portfolio company, or also if somebody is still working, do you think this is something that they could do as a side hustle, or is this too much involvement for that?
No, this is definitely a full-time thing. If you have some digital marketing expertise, I'd say get really good at that and then start investing some dollars, because worst case scenario, you can squeeze out like a over one ROAS and probably not lose that much money if you're like a decent digital marketer. If you're not a good digital marketer, I'd go find one and then team up with that person. Like if you've got 50 to 100K that you want to invest in very more high risk, but like interesting things, like that might be a good way to start. But I'd find a good trusted digital marketer and give that person like partnership level access to your portfolio or whatever. That's kind of what happened with Sam and I, where I haven't really invested a lot of money. It's been more so my time. And I've got insane digital marketing expertise. So, and Sam's got a really good, he has a really good track record of media. He has a lot of deal flow. And that's one of the reasons why we partnered up and so like that synergy is super strong, where he's got a really good business expertise. He's got a track record of success of scaling and selling companies, especially in media. So he gets a lot of deal flow. He has deal flow. I have knowledge on how to scale this or take advantage or take action, execute off the deal flow. So it was a really good happy marriage. So maybe more people out there can find a marriage like Sam and I have.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost the opposite of when you're trying to start your own company and you're looking for a technical founder. Now you're looking for a non-technical marketing venture partner almost. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah. If you find someone with deal flow, and you could go, I think it was on the My First Million podcast, Sam's podcast. I think that podcast is on your network too, right? The HubSpot network.
Yeah.
I think I heard this guy came on their podcast. I think he's starting this company called Micro Acquire. Super interesting concept.
I know the founder, Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to have him on too. Yeah. So
cool.
He has
should totally have him on. Yeah. So he has a marketplace for this. So if you've got 30 or 50 grand and you're very interested in like doing a startup, let's say you're in a corporate job and you're interested in maybe doing startups full time, or you're interested in investing or whatever, that might be a good place to start too. If you don't have deal flow, other than that, I would find someone with deal flow, and then you would definitely, the missing component there would be digital marketing expertise, technical marketing expertise.
All right, I want to bring out some rapid fire career questions. Before we pivot, any last thoughts on stuff you're working on now, and then also most importantly, if people want to reach out to you, ask you questions, social, email, website, whatever you want to drop.
Yeah, savage.ventures is the website. There's a contact form there. I read all those inquiries personally. And then LinkedIn DM's good. I'm more active on LinkedIn than Twitter. I'm active in Twitter DM, so you can definitely DM me there. But I honestly like to stay off of social media. I'm on social media all day long for my companies. And then personally, it's just too much for me, you know?
All right. So let's go through some rapid fire. Biggest challenge you've overcome in your own personal or professional life. What was it? How did you overcome it?
Yeah, it was leaving the music industry, having that really toxic relationship with my best friend turned business partner. And then, fast forward 5 or 6 years, we couldn't even talk to each other, sit in the same room as each other. He was the best man at my wedding too. Basically reinventing myself. I had done some digital marketing, man, in the music industry, but I was doing more like just producing. Like I was actually recording the records and producing them. And I literally had to transform myself, like reinvent my career, because I had spent the last 8 or 9 years before that learning how to be a really good music producer and bass player and recording engineer. And I spent like 5% of my time digital marketing. So that was probably, I sat on the couch for 3 months. I even cried a couple of times, like in my wife's arms. Like, can you imagine her? Like, it's okay, baby, it's okay. I was not in a good state. I was super depressed. And luckily, my friend called me out of Atlanta, like I mentioned earlier, and I got into the app game, the startup game, and ended up loving it. And as a result, here I am, like another 6 or 7 years later, one of the top digital marketers in the world. And at least I think so. I've spent God knows how many hours doing it, and had my first like real deal success story in business, which is super cool.
Amazing. How did you reinvent yourself? How did you double down on digital marketing? Was it just grinding it out? Where did you go?
Yeah, grinding it out. You can learn anything on YouTube and YouTube. Yeah, it was a thing back then, but like I would just say yes. So for example, when I was trying to grow Split, we had no marketing expertise, and I was technically like our leader of marketing and sales. I was just like, oh, we need to do this. Don't know how to do it. We don't have any money to hire somebody. I'm going to figure it out. And 99% of your answers are on YouTube or on Google, and you can go there and find your answers. And then that knowledge just compounded over, a 3 to 4 year period. Also, another key to, I think, how fast I grew as a digital marketer, or how fast I transformed my career, was not just saying, yes, I'll do anything and everything related to marketing, but also it's working with multiple companies at the same time. Because during that period, I was doing Split pretty much full time, but I was, dabbling in this other company that I wasn't even getting paid for. I was just trying to do it. And so like, that's the reason I have like 20 something probably like startup failures, is because I said yes to every opportunity. I tried it, I failed at it. And through those lessons, I got really good, really fast. So it's like I went on a accelerated version of like becoming a badass digital marketer by working with 3 to 4 companies and at a time and saying yes to everything. But yeah, dude, I remember the first time I said yes to like a real deal marketing consulting project. This company was going to pay me $30 an hour to run paid search ads. I had no idea how to do it. I had never done it before. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And that night I stayed up all night. I read up about it, like everything from like how you modify keywords to how you can test ads. And I guess I'm naturally kind of gifted at marketing in general. Like it's like when I first picked up the guitar, like I mentioned earlier, marketing like kind of clicked for me too. And especially like taking science to marketing, which you could do in 2021. Yeah. But yeah, so like I said yes to paid search, and it was a little bit clunky early on with that company that hired me. But dude, 3 months later, I was making them a crap load of money off the $30 an hour they were paying me. I remember they had like a 5 to 10 ROAS, and we were scaling it across like 6 or 7 markets. And so for everyone out there that's trying to get into a new career, reinvent themselves, or just like kind of feeling down in the dumps, just start saying yes to more stuff. And then what ends up happening is you get really good at something, and then you have to start saying no to most things. But you don't get there until like where you are with me right now, like where you are in my shoes. Like I'm starting to say no to stuff now, but for the last 7 years, I've said yes to literally everything.
Amazing.
And then I can sleep sometimes.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, it leveled you up really, really fucking quickly. So that's good. That's good. It's you throw yourself into something, you know, you sink or swim, and most people figure out a way to swim if they want it bad enough.
For sure.
All right. Let's next one person who's been very impactful in your life. There's probably been a few, but pick one. And what did they teach you? What did you learn from them?
I'll just go with Sam, maybe because it's like top of mind, my current business partner.
Yeah.
But he's someone I looked up to in the music industry, or excuse me, in the business world. Interesting story about how I met him, by the way. I was doing some networking as I got a year or two into my digital marketing career. I was just interested in networking with other startup people and stuff like that. And this one week I networked, like grabbed drinks with, which I don't recommend doing, by the way, is just grab random drinks unless you're actually going to take action off of like the conversation. A lot of people just will grab coffee, and I've wasted thousands of hours grabbing coffee. I wish I just was running digital marketing experiments during that time. But I ran into 3 people. So I was becoming a decent technical marketer. I was like building websites, you know, scaling ads, and I was talking to people that didn't even know like what WordPress was, you know. And so like, but 3 people this one week said, "Hey, dude, you should really meet this Sam guy." And no one would give me his freaking information. Like they were very guarded on his information. He's this like internet, you know, he's this internet like magician. He scaled all these media properties. He lives here in Nashville, and I perked up, dude. I'm like, this guy's in Nashville? Because Nashville, it's getting better, but it's pretty much like a music and healthcare town. Like there's some good technical people here, but but back in like 16, 17, it really wasn't that great. And so, of course, being the good digital marketer I am, I scraped his email using this Chrome extension called Duck Soup, which I think we talked about actually. About his personal email. And I emailed him, and I was like, I've got to make this count, you know, because like this is a guy that I clearly need to meet. I'm almost nervous sending this email out, and so the subject line was, "Who the fuck is Sam Savage?" And that got his attention. He opened it and responded like 30 minutes later saying, "Dude, let's meet for drinks." And so what he's taught me, and we met for drinks, you know, like a week later, we ended up starting a business, the MyDrHank thing, like a year after that. And then obviously we're scaling the crap out of Savage Ventures now together, which is cool. He's taught me a couple things. One is life is way too short to work with people and to work on things you really don't like to do. Like you don't have to be like, going back to what you were saying earlier, you don't have to be super passionate about the companies you're scaling. Like, you know, like it's your lifelong, you know, like passion or whatever, but you need to really enjoy the people you're working with, the environment you're working in, and generally enjoy like what you're doing inside of the companies. Like, I don't really like I don't like total frat-based content anymore being like it's kind of nostalgic. I say that, but I look at the
it's like
girls
you know, it was really funny. It was funny like when I was in college, right? Like,
well, I mean, it's still funny now in a nostalgic type of way. I just don't have time to look at that content anymore because I've got 2 young kids and a bunch of companies to work on. But so that's one, is like life's too short to do something you don't want to do. And that could be applicable to your personal life too. Like if you're in if you're in a relationship you shouldn't be in, if you are getting married and you really don't want to be, whatever it is, like get out, just do it. It's going to suck for like 3 months, and then your life's going to be like transformed just making those decisions. And then the second thing I'd say is like, don't be afraid. Like I'm pretty, because of kind of watching Sam do things, he like just has a very, not laissez-faire, but like he just has a very, he just doesn't have a filter. He's always himself, and he will like literally call somebody that's like super famous, super respected, you know, or whatever, and have a conversation. He's just like, he's relentless about connecting with people and networking, and he doesn't let it bother him, if that makes sense. I'm having trouble explaining this one, but like,
no, he's just, I get
things,
it. He's just natural. Like, he's not threatened, but just, he doesn't place people on a pedestal. He just, he treats
everyone like he's their friend, you know, not a friend, but like everyone's on the same. Yeah. And we don't really have like, I coach our marketers and stuff, but at Savage Ventures, we're pretty much on an even playing field, you know, except when we sell a company, Obviously, the contributions would be differently, but yeah. So those are the two big things I think I learned from him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I respect that. I don't know Sam well. Maybe I'll have to have him on one day.
If you can get him on, I've been pushing him to do more stuff like this, but he's a super private person too.
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe I'll just have to be I'll have to be Joe Rogan level, and then he'll fly out.
Probably so. He'll do this podcast, Scott. I'm kind of he is more private. The feedback that I've given him recently though is like, you need to start, because as part of me being on here, or just us talking about the podcast, it's like I really want to get the Savage Ventures brand more out there, because we work on our portfolio brands all the time, but we have spent no time doing the Savage Ventures brand, other than I had Cliff, our designer, redo a logo, and I threw up a one-page WordPress site, which is now like 3 pages, earlier this year. Other than that, we really haven't spent any time on the brand. Yeah,
and that will attract more deal flow too. If you have that strong brand, that will attract some really incredible talent. Not to say that you can't find it, but I mean, you will get some startups that come out of the woodwork that want to work with you, because you've had some really great successes. So it's nice to be in that spot, right, where you have the ability to choose who you're working with, and you're not hunting for more deals. But yeah, for sure, we'll figure it out, man. We'll figure it out. All right. What would be a book, podcast, Audible, something that you would recommend people go check out that's been useful for you?
Oh man, I could go all day long. So as part of like saying yes to everything, I also became this I had never really read books up until I started this digital marketing and entrepreneurship journey. And then I was doing at one point in time a book a week, and I think that was part of the transformation process for me. Just developing a daily reading habit, which is usually 30 to 45 minutes before bed. I'd say the top 5 books are Influence by Cialdini. I forgot the exact name. It's Influence, How to Persuade and Influence People or whatever, by Robert Cialdini. It's one of the most famous marketing books of all time. He didn't write it as a marketing book, and he just came out with a new version too, which is a lot longer and more updated for the digital age, because the book was published, I think, back in the early mid 90s. That's a really good one.
Book, but I don't think I have it. I might. No, I don't have it here. It's Influence. I think it's The Power of Persuasion, or The Psychology of Persuasion.
Yeah, something like that, by Robert Cialdini. There's a book by Tim S. Grover called Relentless that I have mixed feelings about 4 or 5 years after I read it, but he was Michael Jordan's coach. If you saw the Michael Jordan documentary that was released on, I think it was on Netflix last year or whatever, he was interviewed in there a couple times. That's a really good book about what it takes to actually be the best. And a lot of people don't want it. It's not for everyone. And what Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade went through to be the best at their craft, and how he coached them through that. That's a super good book. What else comes to mind?
Those are good. Those are good books.
Dude, I could walk back in the office right now. We've got a stack of books. No. I read a book recently that was interesting, and it kind of shed some light on our OutKick success, in that we didn't really realize it at the time, but we took advantage of changes of legislation that was passed inside the government. And so there's a book called The Clipper Ship Strategy, it's the Clipper Ship, I think, The Clipper Ship Strategy. And basically the Clipper Ship Strategy was back during the gold rush. There was a very high demand on the entire west coast of the United States. And then there was equipment basically being manufactured at low cost on the east coast of the United States. And Clipper ships were these new ships that could go really fast and take all the equipment that they needed, basically the pickaxes that they needed, and bring them around the bottom half of the United States and up to California. And so they can manufacture these pickaxes for $1 or 50 cents or something on the East Coast, and sell them for $20 on the West Coast. And the margins were huge. And so it's just take advantage of different circumstances. And he goes into how you can do this with the government in the more recent years, and how there are these funnels of money that are created by the government when new legislation is passed, and how you can build companies around that. It was fascinating. Definitely more of a dry read, if you're into if you're diehard about like being an entrepreneur and growing companies, that might be an interesting read. And then podcasts, I would read. Yeah. I would, if you're trying to be a good digital marketer, the Marketing School podcast is good.
Neil Patel?
With him, and then Eric Sue. That's a good one if you're like just getting started in technical marketing, because it's like these 5-minute sound bites. The perpetual podcast traffic is good for ads, especially Facebook ads. I think that's run by a digital marketer. And then the All In podcast, which is a newer one, which is just basically like 4 very prolific investor billionaires talk.
I know that podcast.
Shit.
Yeah,
that's a really good one. Like Chamath is on there and some other folks.
Yeah.
And then I'd say the 5th podcast I listen to a bunch is Noah Kagan's podcast, because he's got a good marketing mind, but he also has like this interesting business sensibility to him. And so he talks about like, he interviews a lot of fascinating people, and he's also just a really good interviewer. So that's an entertaining podcast that actually you'll learn something from too.
Maybe
and your podcast is awesome, Scott, as well. I actually candidly did not listen to a bunch of episodes until we met last week, and obviously to prep for this interview. I know. But I downloaded it, and it'll definitely be on cycle every week. I listen to podcasts when I warm up at the gym. So it'll definitely enter that habit.
That's how you get it out there, man. You fly to Nashville, go to a conference, and then all of a sudden you got another download. So it's maybe not the most scalable podcast growth strategy, but it works.
An airplane flight gets you 1 download. That's not very good. Going back to economies of scale, I don't think that's a very good one. Yeah. Unless your average download is worth like a couple grand. That would be.
It depends who downloads.
That's
true. Depends who downloads. Yeah. Okay. If you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Don't be afraid. Like, well, first of all, you're young, so you should definitely start companies and be a lot more risky. Even though I'm more risky now, and I talked about how we kind of de-risked that, but I'm being way more risky now than I ever was in the business world. And I should have been doing this when I was 21, 22 or whatever. In fact, in the music industry, our like 4th or 5th year in, we started having success. And when we started having success, I kind of shelled up or balled up. And I was afraid to, take advantage of that opportunity. And now I have kids and I can't work, all night because I've got to wake up with a kid at 3 a.m. or probably 6 a.m. And I value sleep a lot more these days because, again, I have kids. So absolutely go all in and take a ton of risks, because worst case scenario, you max out a couple credit cards, but you'll learn so much from that experience that even if you didn't want to do the entrepreneurship thing anymore, any company, any good startup would hire you in a heartbeat for 6 figures. If in fact you actually learned a lot of great skills like digital marketing skills or development skills or whatever.
Very smart. And last question, what does success mean for you?
I mean, right now I'm just trying to get to total financial freedom, like FU status, so I can do whatever I want to do. And then obviously that means I can take my family along that journey so that they have total financial freedom. I think success also changes as you go through stages of life. Like my 25-year-old self would have said, get married. My 21-year-old self would have been like, success is getting drunk at a party and taking a girl home, or whatever, right? I think it changes. So in my mid-30s, I've built these digital marketing skills that I know I can leverage. We have proof that we can scale companies. We've got something brewing here. And my 3 to 5 year goal is to get total financial freedom. And then after that, success will probably look different. Maybe it's traveling more with my family or something like that, but I'm solely focused on getting financial freedom right now. So success in the 3 to 5 year time frame would be total financial freedom.
Amazing. All right, that's all I got, man. That's it. Those are
cool.
That was good. That was very good.